Dalmatians have long been associated with firefighting and have grown to become a symbol of the job itself. But in the Albany Fire Department, we only have a few stories about Dalmatians. You might be surprised to learn that other animals played larger roles than dogs in the department's history. So, let's first think about the working animals who were required for firefighting and served the department for a period of nearly 60 years. While today we no longer use animals for physical labor, up until about a century ago, the movement of goods, transportation, and services within the city often involved horses. Before the 1860s, the fire department had to pull their machinery to the scene of fire by hand, a slow and tiring process. But in 1867, all hand pumpers were replaced with much heavier steam fire engines and required the use of horses. For the next 55 years, the department relied entirely on these animals to pull engines, chemical extinguisher wagons, ladder trucks, and the chief's personal vehicles. At first, the horses were kept in buildings separate from the firehouses or hired from local livery stables. But new and larger firehouses were soon constructed, each containing its own stable. However, not every horse was suitable for fire work. The department veterinarians emphasized the need for a certain personality, as the life of a fire horse was a far cry from the experience of other working horses. The smells, sounds, and sights of a building ablaze would be enough to cause most animals to flee in terror, and it was a challenge to find horses that could be trained to override their natural instincts. Fire horses spent virtually all of their time within an urban area and jumped into action at the sounding of an alarm at any time of the day or night. These horses were well trained to rush to their assigned positions in front of the apparatus and be harnessed as quickly as possible. They then sped out into the hilly streets of Albany, paved with rough blocks and clogged with carts, pedestrians, and street railway cars at a time with only rudimentary traffic control. Every second wasted was a chance for the fire to bloom into an uncontrollable blaze. Time was of the essence. Back at home, the firefighters, and most especially the drivers, took responsibility for the day-to-day care of the horses. Feeding, grooming, and exercising were all part of the daily routine, and the relationship between the men and horses was one built on care, respect, and compassion. The horses required a safe, comfortable place to live, and lots of hay and oats to eat, but storing feed brought with it the risk of rodents. And what better way to help control rodents than cats? Cats served as companions as well as workers in keeping the rodent populations at bay. After scrapping with neighborhood dogs or hunting their prey, they would return to their nooks in the houses to be doted upon by both the men and the horses. In 1911, a friendship blossomed at Steamer 5 between a cat named Boxer and a horse named Dad. Boxer found her favorite place in Dad's stall, often sleeping on his hindquarters and playing on the engine that he pulled to fires. While we tend to think about animal companionship for humans, in this case, the animals themselves found companionship of their own. At the end of the 19th century, Albany continued to grow, and firefighting became more complex with the construction of taller, more densely packed buildings. Just as horses had improved department technology 30 years earlier, the 1910s saw the introduction of gas-powered fire engines, made necessary by the ever-increasing weight of equipment. And while these vehicles had a higher upfront cost, the department reported that, in the long run, automobiles cost less to operate than maintaining a fleet of horses. By 1922, horses were no longer used, and a newspaper story from the time titled "Firemen Bid Farewell to Their Equine Pals" characterized the bond that existed between the men and their work animals. Each horse was described as having its own personality and its special place in the hearts of each of the men. But it was clear to all that a new age of firefighting had begun.